When did ancient humans start smoking? And more importantly, why would anyone look at a burning plant and think, yeah, I want that inside my face? The answer is way older and way weirder than you think. Humans have been deliberately inhaling smoke for at least 5 to 6,000 years. But here's the twist. They were not doing it because it looked cool or because they were stressed after a long day of farming. They were doing it to talk to the gods. The first smokers in history were not rebels, they were priests. Sweaty, coughing, gagging priests who thought the dizziness and nausea were divine messages. Spoiler alert, it was just smoke. In their lungs, which has never ever been good for you. Let's set the scene. You are an ancient human, life is hard. The crops might fail. The animals might eat you. Disease is everywhere and you have no idea what causes it. When bad things happen, you assume the gods are angry. When good things happen, you assume the gods are happy. Your entire survival strategy is keep the gods happy. So how do you talk to beings you cannot see or hear? You need a messenger. Enter smoke. Smoke rises. It goes up into the sky where the gods live. This is not a metaphor to ancient people. This is logic. If you burn the right plants and inhale the smoke, maybe you can send your prayers directly to the heavens. Maybe you can see visions. Maybe you can cure disease. Maybe you will just cough until you see stars and assume that counts as a mystical experience. Spoiler again. It was definitely the last one. The oldest evidence we have for deliberate smoking comes from all over the world, but the big centers are the Americas and Asia. In Central and South America, tobacco was sacred. The indigenous peoples of the Americas were cultivating and smoking tobacco long before Europeans showed up and ruined everything. But they were not casually puffing away after dinner. Tobacco was serious business. Shamans smoked it during rituals to enter trance states and communicate with spirits. It was medicine. It was prayer. It was absolutely not for fun because if you have ever inhaled raw, unprocessed tobacco smoke, you know it is not fun. It is violent. Your lungs immediately file a formal complaint. In Asia, people were burning hemp, mugwort, and other herbs in enclosed spaces and inhaling the smoke for similar reasons. Ritual, healing, talking to ancestors. The ancient Scythians, a nomadic group that lived around modern-day Central Asia, would build little tents, throw cannabis on hot stones and hotbox themselves into what they believed was a spiritual state. Greek historian Herodotus wrote about this in the 5th century BCE and described them howling with joy. That was not joy. That was oxygen deprivation and panic masked as religious ecstasy. Here is the thing nobody tells you. Early smoking was not smooth. There were no filters, no rolling papers, no carefully cured leaves. You were burning whatever herb you thought had magic powers and sucking the smoke straight into your lungs like a human chimney. People coughed. They gagged. They turned green. They threw up. And then they said, yes, this is working. The gods are definitely responding. The worse you felt, the more powerful the ritual. If you were not suffering, you were not doing it right. And it gets worse. Because ancient people had zero concept of lung damage or long-term health effects. They did not know about cancer. They did not know about emphysema. They did not know that repeatedly filling your lungs with hot smoke and tar would eventually destroy the tissue that keeps you alive. They thought smoke was purifying. They thought it cleaned you from the inside. They were extremely wrong. Let's talk about tobacco specifically, because tobacco is the overachiever of the smoking world. Nicotiana rustica, the species most commonly used in ancient rituals, is way stronger than the tobacco people smoke today. We are talking levels of nicotine that would make a modern smoker cry. Shamans in the Amazon would smoke it or drink it as a juice, which is even worse, and then spend the next several hours vomiting and hallucinating. This was considered a successful ceremony. If you did not vomit, the spirits were not interested in talking to you. Congratulations, your religious experience is now a horrible case of nicotine poisoning, and everyone is very proud. But here is the crazy part, it worked. Not because the smoke had magic powers, but because nicotine is a drug. It makes your heart race, it makes you dizzy, It makes you feel detached from your body. To someone with no concept of brain chemistry, that feels like the gods reaching down and grabbing you by the soul. Add in some sleep deprivation, fasting, chanting, and drumming, and you have got yourself a full mystical experience, all because you huffed a plant. Now, smoking was not just for the professionals. In some cultures, regular people smoke too, but still mostly for medicine or ceremony. Got a toothache? Smoke some herbs. Got a cough? Believe it or not, smoke some herbs. Got evil spirits making you sick? You guessed it. More smoke. The logic was that smoke could drive out bad energy or balance your humors or whatever medical theory you subscribed to before germ theory was invented. Did it work? No. Did people keep doing it? Absolutely. Archaeologists have found pipes all over the world: ceramic pipes, stone pipes, bone pipes, pipes carved to look like animals or gods. Some of the oldest come from the Americas and date back thousands of years. They have found residue inside them: tobacco, cannabis, other psychoactive plants. These were not decorative. These were tools. Heavy-use tools. Some pipes are so worn down from repeated heating that you can tell someone was smoking out of that thing almost every day. Imagine being the archaeologist who carbon dates a pipe and realizes it is older than the pyramids and someone definitely got extremely high with it. In North America, tobacco smoking was deeply embedded in diplomacy and ritual. The famous peace pipe was real and it was sacred. Smoking together meant you were forming a bond, making a promise, or sealing an agreement. You did not casually smoke. You smoked when it mattered. And because tobacco was so strong, everyone involved was probably lightheaded and nauseous by the end, which maybe made negotiations easier because no one had the energy to argue anymore. Europeans did not encounter smoking until they arrived in the Americas in the late 1500s, and they were baffled. Christopher Columbus recorded that the indigenous people gave him dried leaves as a gift, and he had no idea what to do with them, so he threw them away. Later, his crew watched people roll up leaves, light them on fire, and stick them in their mouths. The Europeans thought this was insane. Then they tried it. Then they got addicted. Then they brought it back to Europe and started a global trade that would go on to kill millions of people. Great job, everyone. But let's be clear. The indigenous peoples who first cultivated tobacco did not know it was deadly in the long term. They were using it carefully, ritually, in controlled amounts. It was the Europeans who turned it into a casual, everyday habit. They stripped away the ceremony, cranked up production, and sold it to anyone with coins. That is when smoking became a public health disaster. The original smokers were trying to reach the divine. The later smokers were just trying to get through the day, and they paid for it with their lungs. And here is another twist. Smoking was not even the only way ancient people used tobacco. Some cultures snorted powdered tobacco. Some drank tobacco tea, which sounds like a punishment but was considered medicine. Some blew tobacco smoke onto sick people to heal them, which did nothing except make everyone smell terrible. There is an account from early colonial South America of a healer blowing smoke into a patient's wounds to drive out infection. The infection did not leave. The patient probably wished they would just let them die in peace. Meanwhile, in other parts of the world, people were smoking things that were not tobacco but equally baffling. In ancient China, healers burned mugwort and other herbs and used the smoke in a practice called moxibustion, which is still used in traditional medicine today. The idea was that heat and smoke could stimulate energy points on the body. Did it work? Depends who you ask. Did it involve a lot of smoke in very small rooms? Yes. Did anyone think to open a window? Apparently not. The ancient Egyptians burned incense constantly, though that was less about inhaling it and more about making offerings to the gods and covering up the smell of, well, everything. But they also burned medicinal plants and inhaled the smoke to treat respiratory illness, which is like trying to put out a fire with a flamethrower. They meant well. They were very wrong. One more thing. Ancient people were not stupid. They noticed that smoking made them feel bad. They noticed the coughing and the wheezing, But they interpreted it as proof that it was working. Pain was purification. Suffering was spiritual. If the smoke made you feel like your lungs were being clawed out by a small, angry animal, that meant the gods were paying attention. This is the same logic that gave us bloodletting, trepanation, and eating mercury. Humans are very talented at convincing themselves that horrible things are good for them if they are done in the name of health or religion. So when did humans start smoking? About 5 to 6,000 years ago. Why? Because they thought it would let them talk to gods, cure disease, and unlock hidden truths. Did it do any of those things? No. Did it give them lung damage, nicotine addiction, and a persistent cough? Absolutely. Did they know? Nope. They thought they were being holy. They were actually being poisoned slowly with great ceremony. Next time you walk past someone smoking outside and think it smells bad, just remember. Thousands of years ago, that smell was considered sacred. People built entire religions around it. They coughed their way to enlightenment and thought the dizziness was a gift from the gods. They had no idea they were destroying their lungs one puff at a time. Humans have always been very creative when it comes to hurting themselves and calling it progress. If you want to learn more about the weird, gross, and surprising things ancient humans actually did, you are in the right place. Grug has plenty more stories, and they are all true, which is the best part.